So, we're going to talk about well-being. The state of being well.
We have a talk we're about to do.
Yeah.
Not, so this is audience participation as well. We'd love to have your questions, your comments.
We could start off with that, actually. Does anyone have any specific questions about this understanding as it relates to well-being? That could be physical, mental, emotional. If not, we could just make something up.
You have got a 10-step plan, haven't you?
Yeah. I'm going to phone a friend. Well, I tell you what, I'll start waffling, and if anything comes up, just jump in there and save me.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Cool.
Okay. So here's one I prepared earlier. Well-being, the state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. Then I've got a photo of a beach hut. Nice. Then I noticed the thing about well-being is when I googled the term resilience, it said the ability of a substance or object, meaning us, to spring back into shape, elasticity. I didn't even pronounce that. Elasticity. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll do that too. So, well-being, the state of being well, has a lot to do with the elasticity of us. Because if we kind of get bent out of shape metaphorically, there's this natural psychological immune system that puts us back into shape. Now, we don't need to do anything to be put back into shape, but what we do is stuff that gets in the way of us naturally getting back into state, if that makes sense. So it's not really so much what do we do, it's what are we doing to impede the process. It's like the psychological immune system. If I get a cut, I'm not having to will my arm to heal, it just heals. But I can start picking at it. I can sort of start, putting lots of different ointments on and smudging dirt in it and different things. And it's going to take longer to heal. So, because this understanding is subtractive, it's basically taking stuff off our minds, and that's the stuff that gets in the way of this natural process happening. And like I said in the plenary, I didn't try and let go of the stuff when it happened with myself and Jenny. There was just a letting go, because there's less stuff getting in the way of that natural process happening. And so, with resilience and well-being, the state of being healthy and happy and well is our natural state. But also, our natural state can be the reverse. We can get sad, we can get down, we can get despondent. And that's natural also. Because if it wasn't natural, we wouldn't be doing that so often. Now, although that's also natural, we have thinking about that. Oh, I shouldn't be down, I don't get the principles, I don't want to be feeling like this. Why am I feeling like this? What does it mean? All of that stuff gets in the way of us going down, metaphorically, and then just naturally bouncing back up again. So the absence of thinking about our experience, a natural implication is we just have a much nicer experience. So like I was saying yesterday, I think like even when my mum and dad passed away, there was this, hands up who knows somebody close to them who's passed away. That's pretty much everybody. So this is the human condition. And because it's common for all of us to experience, I like to add to the definition of well-being, the state of healthy and happy and being well. And sometimes you're not. Now that's okay too. Because well-being isn't about running around with your hair on fire, being full of joy and happiness. That's just a part of it. It's actually being able to have the whole range of human emotion. But there's a sense of natural flow through all the experience. It's a bit like I was talking to a student. She had this great metaphor about a piano. She's a pianist, and we tend to think if we're doing well, we're playing all the high notes in life. But actually, the most beautiful music is when you play the full range of the piano. Now, the low notes aren't bad, I'm doing it wrong, and the high notes aren't good, I'm doing it right. There's just the music of life, and we're all of it. So be able to play to the full range with less judgment of ourselves, that is well-being to me.
I think you put that beautifully, and I think the older I get, the less or the more I realise that I'm not in control. You know, I think I can control the small things, and I can get up in the morning and have a routine or whatever, but when it comes to the big things in life, like death, like losing a loved one, that comes out of nowhere sometimes. You know, you can be having a beautiful life, you and your partner, and thinking that everything is fine, living the dream or whatever, and I speak from personal experience. And to slightly change Jack's metaphor, you know, when we sat in the consultant's office that day, and he told Jeff that the prognosis was, sorry, you've got 6 months, it was like, togetherness, our relationship, our life together. That was just like a shattering. And suddenly what you had thought was going to be, you know, that future life that you had together for this wonderful retirement that you'd be lucky enough to do then, that was all just pieces on the ground, and try as I might have done to pick those up and stick them together, that wasn't going to happen. That was just so not in my control. That was whatever, if there's a bigger scheme of things. And that was my big wake-up call, I think, to, oh my God, I am not in control of this. There's no point in fighting this. It's a flow. It's like you say, we've got the whole range of all the notes. And I may want to play that lovely, pretty melody, whereas there's some very discordant stuff going on at that time. But what I saw then was my personal resilience, my inner spark, my inner strength, that essence of me. That's when I got in touch with that. I didn't know about that before. Nothing really bad, what's bad, what's good, had happened to me before. But suddenly I found out just how strong I was, mentally. You know, 2 choices. Sit in the corner and cry, fall apart, or get on with what we'd started to build together, because we were halfway through building a house. And I said, before Jeff died, I promised him I'd finish it. So I did. You know, and if you told me, you know, if I'd read the ending of our story together before I'd read the beginning of it, I'd have gone, well, yeah, throw the book away. Not doing that, you know, let's change it. I would not have had, through that shattering, as Jack said, that essence, I would not have discovered that. Maybe not until later. So there's just stuff that happens. There's not good, there's not bad. However much we make up that it's good and bad, because that's all we're doing. We're telling a story about telling a story. And I'm telling it from my perspective of that story. There's not anything out there that can harm us, and there's nothing out there that can help us, to probably misquote Sydney Bannon, because there's nothing out there. We make it alright. You know, the stuff that goes on is neutral, however bad, however good. What we think about, what we have thoughts about it, how we experience those thoughts as feelings. You know, they're our calibration of what's going on up here, those feelings. perhaps to see that, to see where that comes from, that just unlocks the personal me can stand aside and go, okay, what's next? Let's play with life, let's go with the flow. We were talking earlier, Nick, about the ocean and how we sometimes think, you know, the ocean's very calm and we're part of this, so we're all part of this lovely ocean. And then the waves kick up a bit, it gets a bit rough, and we think we're separate. We think we're one of those little waves that's separate and it's really exciting or whatever. And a drop of that, which is us, gets suspended in the air. And we think that's us. And we think, actually I quite like up here, I like the view, this separate view I've got. Oh, look, it's an ocean, that's interesting. But I'm up here and I like it up. And I'm back down in the ocean. And that's home. And I think, you know, we have that moment of being a separate dot. And we're back in the ocean again. Yeah, it's cool. It's okay. It's always okay. We're always okay. Psychologically. Body might not be. Body might not be around anymore. Oh well. Next.
There's something you said, Rudi, at the beginning about sadness and well-being, and that both are a natural state, and I've never heard it like that before. I'd love to hear a bit more about what you mean when you say that naturally we fall into sadness or something. What is it exactly you said? I'd love to just hear a bit more about that.
And me. There's a totality of human experience. You've got, I'm going to break it and split it, but I have to use words, so I'll bring it back together afterwards. So you've got like the low end, which could be anger, hatred, resentment, pain, suffering, and you've got like the high end, which could be gratitude, love, and peace. And the energy behind life, well, my interpretation, I'm not saying this is true, but my personal interpretation of that, it is loving, it is love, it's benign. But as human beings, using thought to experience this power, we tend to go between both polarities. The unnatural state is thinking that when we go here, it's bad. So, when we... as there's this natural embracement of all of it, there's not really judgment when you go between both states. It's just what's happening. And what's happening is thought in the moment giving us our experience, full stop. And I mean, all of us, or most of us, experience someone close to us passing away. I mean, most of us have probably experienced someone you love, you know, that love lost, so to speak. So it is a human experience. But I think for me, being able to, when my mum passed away, I was quite new to this, and when I started playing the low notes, I had thinking that I shouldn't be playing the low notes, I know the principles, I should know better, it's wrong, it's my unnatural state to be feeling like this, why am I feeling like this, I should be feeling okay. So I had all this thinking about the low notes. And then as there was evolution, my dad passed away about 2 years ago, and what I noticed is that the fact is my dad has physically left his form, but I could play the low notes, and there wasn't really any thinking about playing the low notes, I was just playing the low notes. And the buoyancy is that, earlier I said the metaphor about being bent out of shape. Like, we don't really have a shape, our shape is like this, but we always come back. And so there's this ability to experience any any adversity within our lives and have the perception of being bent out of shape by it, but we always come back. There's always like a equilibrium where we return, and the returning home again is a natural implication of having a lot less thinking about our experience. And so really before, I used to have judgment if I was playing with things. Now I don't. And I used to have judgment if I'm seeing the principles and I'm not seeing the principles. Now there's just this thought in the moment giving us our experience. And I don't care if it's wisdom or insight or this type of thinking, that type of thinking, because there's just thought. Get rid of all the concepts and beliefs about what kind of thinking we're having. It's thought, drawn to life our experience. And so again, you're able to be in life the human experience that we're all in together, and we're all going to experience suffering, we're going to experience death, we're going to experience breakups, we're going to experience joy, we're going to experience sadness. It's just the human experience. So to be a human and experience the totality of all experience without thinking about it, what that means, what kind of person does it make me? If you feel shit, just feel shit. If you feel happy, you're feeling happy. If you just don't want to get out of bed and you want to cry all day, just do that. Like, who says it's a bad thing? For me personally, having, again, some people are a lot worse than me in the form. Having both my parents pass away has just been an opportunity which has emptied my heart to a greater form of love. So it's all just as it is. And like Jenny was saying, like when Jenny left, sometimes I was thinking about it as just the worst thing that could happen to me. Other times I was thinking, I could start dating again, I could go and live in another country. So when I was thinking it like that, I felt really good about it. When I was thinking of it something else, I felt really bad about it. It was never Jenny leaving me. It's my experience of that fact of her leaving was coming from my thinking of that fact. So we're not saying it's all an illusion and it's your fault if you think it. That's personalising it. We're just saying that our entire experience of everything, it's not just thought, it's all thought. Because just thought can belittle something, belittling God, if you will. We live in an all-pervasive experience of thought, and thought is the bridge between the form and the formless. It's the link between the experience of life and how we personally get to experience that experience of life. It's the only thing happening. So to know where your experience is coming from in the moment doesn't protect you from being human and experience the full range of human emotions, but it stops you blaming the world for your experience, it stops you blaming other people for your experience, and it allows you to just not judge yourself so much about your experience. And when you take self-judgment off your psychological experience, you've immediately got well-being. When I was in the depth of agony after Jenny told me, I was actually well. So my experience of well-being is very different from the definition. It isn't dependent on a state of mind, it's understanding the state of mind and how it's generated. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I think there's something about, when we can take the personal out of it. I mean, I know it's very hard because when you've lost somebody, in bereavement and stuff, but there's something about, like I remember, going through a breakup and it being very painful, but being able to say, you know what, they didn't try to hurt me, and being able to say, instead of being this, why is this happening to me? Yeah. All of this is happening to me. It's like when you can get away from that, you just think, it's just happening. It's not about me. It's just about what's happening. don't personalise it, we're able to see that actually it's just unfolding, you know, and that gives us that sense of resilience, that ability to see that there's, like what you're saying, life for new growth, life for other stuff, you know, whether it's dating or new life, whatever we want to create, right? We can create either way. We can create the, this is all happening to me, or we can create the, oh, now there's all this growth going to happen, or whatever, you know. It's something like the personal, we take it very personally.
Yeah, we do, don't we?
All the time, which is, you know, not to say that we never will, you know, but, yeah.
Yeah, we're human beings, we get caught up in it, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
And then we see it.
And there's nothing wrong with that either. We're going to do that.
Yeah.
Got the best special effects in the whole universe.
Lucky we are, right?
Isn't there something powerful about allowing that? Because I think one of the things that you were saying to me is that you're learning to allow, you know, to experience whatever you experience. And surely, unless you've had love, you can't really experience hate. If you haven't had loss, you can't experience connection. Or maybe you can, but not as richly. And that adds to the richness of life, doesn't it? And I think what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say, is that you're learning to allow whatever experience is happening to happen, knowing that it's not permanent, nothing is permanent. And that the nature of life is that it will flow, that it will change.
Yeah, there's a natural implication of understanding is we drop a lot of unnecessary thinking. So there's less happening to get in the way of this natural system. Because again, this isn't personal. This system has nothing to do with you or me. There's nobody wiser or more resilient than anybody else. I mean, we have historical figures that we can say, oh my God, look at Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King. But the same system enlivening them is the same system enlivening us. And so this understanding really has nothing to do with us, and it isn't personal. It's seeing the impersonal, universal nature of it operating this appearance of a Rudi or a Tom. And not getting in the way of that, it works really well. I mean, my biggest insights I've had when I've been classed as depressed. Is depression a good thing? It doesn't feel very nice. Bloody hell, I wouldn't choose it. If I had a choice, I'd say I don't want to feel this. But this time when I was sad, it wasn't Rudi being sad, there was just sadness here. It's not really personal. It is. But it isn't. I know a man who, in my mind, is probably enlightened. I don't really know what enlightenment is, but I think what I've made up about it, I know this man who is. He's not within the 3 principles community. And his wife cheated on him and left him. Okay? So, you've got this personification of love, and that still happens. Like, again, you can do everything right, and people can still tread on you. Like, or you can do everything wrong and people can still stay with you. I mean, there's no rules to this. If we walk through life taking everything so personally, we just innocently put more and more rocks on our own backpack, and then we're walking around like, and it's harder and harder. And there's an expression that says angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. There's this lightness of the non-personal. That allows you just to forget about the past and just bloody go and do stuff anyway. To be hurt and fall in love again. Because when you see you cannot be damaged, it gives you courage to be in love even though you've been hurt. Because you realise there's almost no point being alive unless you're in love, because you're not really home. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that's the potential. Because there's no rules with this at all. It's different for everybody, but it's the same for everybody. And while it's raining, let's put some music on, have a dance around, just go climb a tree. Go learn to dance, learn some music, turn off Three Principles movies and go for a walk with a friend. The potential is just to be in love with life, and then there's people in the form in your life, but it's not them. You can ignore them, love them, but it's not them.
Yeah, it's an example that I last year was doing Jack's course, and we were going out for dinner, and I went up to my room and said, I'm so tired, I don't want to talk to anybody, I don't want to go out. But I just thought, I'll go anyway. And I think I sat opposite Richard, and halfway through the meal, I suddenly realised I was really enjoying myself. I'd sort of forgotten that I was tired. And it's very arbitrary. Get up, don't feel like it. In a moment. And I didn't see that, I didn't see the space between It was just, oh, I'm really enjoying myself. Don't question it. Go with it. In and out, in and out. All taken care of.
I've got a friend who's the worst singer in the world.
Is it Dog?
Okay, one of the worst singers.
Sorry.
And I've been to a couple of different social drinks, and he gets up and he sings to everybody. Because he plays a banjo, the ukulele, the guitar. He's a really talented musician, but his voice just isn't brilliant. He's out of tune. He doesn't care, and he just sings. And I just love listening to him because he's just enjoying singing. Who says you have to be good at something to do? You don't have to be good at something to do it. It's the act of doing it. That's the enjoyment. And I remember watching, who was this guy? Pinker. There's this guy that wrote about how humanity seems to be evolving, and the death rate's down and wars are down and stuff. And he did this TED talk. And when the camera went close, he was shaking, and he had a really dry mouth. And he was really nervous, but he just did it anyway. And that's one of my favourite TED talks. You get people who are so eloquent and great metaphors, and just people are mesmerised by their charisma. But that's my favourite TED talk because it shows so much courage and humanity that you'll frighten the crap out of, but bollocks, I'm going to do it anyway. And that's the capacity we have as humans. If you're not very good at something you enjoy, just do it anyway. Find your passion, find your love, just whatever it is, however it shows up. We don't need to be so serious all the time about everything. We don't need to be so serious about the Three Principles. It's just a description of how we're creating our experience.
It's very easy to get very significant about the Three Principles. It's always like, I must do the Three Principles all the time. You don't do it, you do it. But it's there.
I met one guy in America, and he said, the Three Principles are a big pile of crap. And I went, okay then. So, nice day, do you want to go for a walk? I don't care, I don't need to defend the Three Principles, It's like trying to defend gravity. You can have someone saying, I don't believe in gravity, but that gravity's the reason they're stuck to the earth. I know for a fact that we experience fire thought. Why do I need to defend that? It allows you to just be this definition of resilience to be flexible, to be that the plasticity, that there's nothing to defend, there's nowhere to go, there's just this beautiful, majestic experience of life that's sometimes fucking horrible. But that's just a human experience. Sorry, it keeps away. Anyway, waffling.
There was something you were saying earlier, and I can't put it into words, but I'll have a go. There was something that really struck me about the power of getting in our own way. And it was, it's what Jack was saying on the first day. It was the power to make stuff up, and it's like we have such a power to. I mean, it takes incredible effort to narrow the keyboard, but we don't see that. And I haven't quite got the articulation at the moment, but it was just I saw something about, fuck, we're doing. That requires such. The naturalness is angels taking themselves lightly, is the natural place. We are light, as it were, and it requires such density or it's like, planes naturally have lift, and it requires something to bring it down. It's like, that's power. It's power that we have.
People want to own though, don't they?
Yeah.
When people feel that energy and that love. I've been in groups before now where there's an amazing energy going on, and you meet every week and you're moving the project forward and it's fantastic and everyone's putting in. I love the way you all flow and naturally let it flow, which is how obviously the 3 principles works. And I've seen that operating in other kind of groups. And then a couple of people will go, right, well, we need to give this a name, and someone should direct it. Who wants to be secretary? Let's go and create an association. And I remember saying at that point, in one of these things, I could see it happening. I just said, the minute we try and take control of this life force that's flowing through us, it will go. You can't control it.
You feel it.
But you can see it happening, and it did, within a year. And they got the director's name, the presidente's name, it was all written up in the notary, and they'd done this and done that. And within a year, there was conflict, and it all fell apart. Because the energy had gone, they tried to own it.
And overcomplicated.
Overcomplicated.
Like you were saying that it takes huge. I just had this thought a little while ago. It takes a huge amount of effort to try and control what we're feeling. Right? I can't feel this. I'm not going to go through this. And then sometimes it's like this. I just imagine. I don't know why. I just pictured myself just being like, I can't be asked with this anymore. Like I can't be asked with all this suffering stuff. Like why don't we just go and do something else? It's like when you get that perspective, when you can look upon it outside of yourself and not have that personal, you can just be like, you know what, it's too much work to try and contain it and understand it and control it, and well, we could just let it be and know that it's going to evolve in whatever capacity it evolves.
It's a good old beach ball metaphor, isn't it? We're trying to push that down.
And how exhausting it is constantly trying to keep it.
I had just remind me of what Kate was saying, I had an experience recently, and my ex, not Sheila, a previous ex, from a long time ago, my ex-wife, I had a very difficult period when she left me for my best friend at the time. So that was tough. And it was a very difficult 2 years, I've got to say, before I had any of this understanding. Then I got interested in the spiritual malarkey and all this, and forgiveness, and there was all this, and I still wasn't quite, I wasn't grounded in anything, but I had an intellectual understanding. And this guy, he was actually with my ex for about 7 years, and then they ended up splitting up. And there was some, I was quite pleased about that on some level, I must admit. And he wasn't very happy about it, so I was quite pleased about it. But there came a point when I first started doing my yoga studio needed a wooden floor, and this guy was a carpenter, and I thought, perfect time to see if I can ask him to do the job. And I'll be very mature, and I can forgive him, and I'll ask him. So he was kind of shocked, and I asked him, and he was like, all right. But there came a point where at some point in the proceedings he said, oh, we'll have to go for a drink, and I thought, oh, I'm not ready for that. And then I could ask him to do my floor, but I couldn't actually go out and have a beer with him, you know.
Yeah.
And then a few years down the line, he actually phoned me up and asked me to do some work for him. And this is only a couple of weeks ago. So he wanted me to clear, it was really interesting how life works out. He wanted me to, sorry if I'm waffling, but he wanted me to clear a plot of land where he was building a house with my ex-wife. So I'm working on his house and my ex-wife's house that was half finished, because they split up when they'd half finished building it. And he was helping me. And there was periods I was really getting on well with him, and then I remembered all the story. And I kept, and then there was this effort to like, he's this guy, and then I just realised, I'll let it, really, if you're going to let it go, let it go. And it was just that, it really was like at that moment, I finally did let it go after I feel I did let it go after 10 years, and it was so much easier than holding onto that resentment and anger than, it just came to mind when Kate was speaking.
Really good.
Yeah. It was so much more effort to hold on to the past than it was to be present with him. This guy, he was just doing the best he could at the time, which I didn't agree with a lot of the time, but...
Yeah. The thing about resentment, I don't know it may have been Keith Blevins, but he said resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yes.
There's an illogic to it. But sometimes we just need to feel it for as long as we need to, and then at some stage there's an okayness to let it go. So whether you're feeling resentful or not feeling resentful, there's not really a wrong or right here, there's just what's happening. And so I felt resentment, and then at some stage I didn't. But I wasn't beating myself up because I was feeling resentful, I just wanted to feel resentful.
Fun sometimes. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Have a tantrum, go on.
So we can take ourselves off the hook with however we're feeling. It's just okay, you know. So that's really funny. I like that.
I'm still not sure if I'll go for a beer with him yet. So I may not have totally let it go.
What time did you finish? 11:25.
I've got 5 minutes.
Anyone else would like to share anything? Yeah, Tony.
Yeah, so some of you here will know I look after my mum. She had Alzheimer's, and my growth through the principles. So I came across the principles around the same time she was diagnosed. So that was a lifesaver, I have to say. So like you were saying, it's okay to go down. So some days she doesn't want to get out of bed and says, I want to die. So what do I think next? And I used to not want to go out and play tennis or and stay, but I went out, and some days I was really low and I wanted to tell everybody I was feeling low, but some weeks I went out and I was okay because my mood, I was in a different place. And it's just seeing that more and more that I'm not in control of how I'm feeling, and what she says to me has no control over me. And it's just embracing it all. I still talk to her as though she can remember everything. So while I've been here, people have been coming to see her around this morning and said, oh, do you remember? So and so, no one's seen me at all these last 4 days. But I'm not going to not say that. I want to treat her so she's a complete human being. Because as soon as I think she's not, I won't be able to help her. I won't be present. And this journey to first when I became a carer, I wanted to save her. So I thought I had to be, what is a carer? So I made up this role of being a carer, and I got ill. I got very ill.
Yeah.
looked on the internet, all these pills that, oh yeah, this can help somebody who's got Alzheimer's, and dedicated for 6 months to sort of put myself aside. Of course that wasn't a good idea. I got ill, and then I just had an insight about a year later. I'm like, God, what am I doing to myself? You know, I made up this role. So that really helped. So after that I was lighter, but I still had my sickness periods when I was ill for 6 weeks last year, because I thought I had to do these things for Mum before she dies. I have to learn to do ballroom dancing and all this stuff, and then I was myself, and 6 weeks where I was really, really low, yeah, the body just shut down, really. So it's all part of the journey though. It's, you know, seeing more and more that it's just what it is, and obviously the deeper my understanding gets, the more I'm not going to get caught out in my thinking about her, and I'm not going to take it seriously anyway. You know, I can cry, I can laugh. I mean, she laughs more now. I dropped a plate on the floor the other day, had a tantrum, and she's laughing. So, well, why aren't you laughing, Tony? She's laughing and you're not, but that's okay too. You know. Yeah. So it's yeah. But I can definitely say, if I hadn't come across this understanding, I would be minced meat or whatever metaphor you want to use, because I used to believe all my thoughts. They were so real, and I would have been, yeah. In that case. Not in that case now sometimes.
And also, Tony, you're not just looking after your mum. You know, you're not just looking after your mum with the posts that you have in the group that you had on Facebook. You're helping a load of other people that are in the same position as you. And I've read some of the beautiful posts that you've written and what people have responded. So that's, you know, that's so powerful. And it's just you sharing wherever you're feeling. If you're feeling, I don't want to get out of bed, or whether you're, you know, and your mum's laughing.
Yeah.
You know, that's so helpful for people. Really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think it's just sharing your personal, because before I thought my personal experience didn't mean a thing. Yeah, oh, no one wants to know about me, you know, everyone's having a great time and I'm having a very bad time. But, you know, like Gillian said, actually me doing that, I did start it when I was really in a bad place. So, like I said, we can do positive things even when we're down, just the intention of getting something going. And, you know, and that helped me a bit, although I did go through a period where no one who cares about me, you know, no one posts. I put these beautiful posts up and no one's saying beautiful things. It's not working, and, you know, that ego, that sort of misunderstanding about you doing something and you expect something back. But yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks for bringing out Gillian. It doesn't come into my mind, because it's not, to me, it's just me being me. It's not something I'm doing for someone else. So.
Also, what I didn't say in the talk, which I forgot, was that really obvious, but I didn't see it. A student came up to me afterwards and said that, well, he didn't say this, but this is what I heard. It was that we are not evolving personally. There's evolution happening through us, but it's not for us. And so through for the stuff that's personally happening with you, is evolution happening with the ripples that you create. And myself and Ash were attempting to walk to Lighthouse. We never made it, but there was this boat and this water skier, and my God, like, he looked like having so much fun, like doing all these jumps and somersaults and things. But it was quite far out, and I noticed after the boat had gone past, 10 minutes later, the ripples were still hitting the shoreline. And so we're kind of like antennae sending signals out, like resonances out, and it's rippling through the consciousness of what is. And we don't know what the ripples are doing. But I do know that there does seem to be an inbuilt evolution to life happening through the form of us. And to me, personally, it's reminding us of where home is. And home is well-being. That's it.
listening to.